Where's your hat?
What are you talking about?
There we go. Good to see you. Thanks for all the help.
Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a quorum, so I would like to call this meeting to order. Tonight is Monday, June 8th, and I just want to note that because our meetings are being done virtually, all votes will be done via roll call. We have all 7 board members on the meeting tonight and many staff and administrators. Superintendent Schultz, would you like to review our agenda for the night and let us know who is joining us from the district?
Yes, so at tonight's meeting, we'll do approval of minutes. I'll save the excellence and act. Under consent, we have personnel, expenditures, some agreements with adult basic education and our state high school league membership. And then also name recognition for the tennis courts named after the Coach Paulson. We'll have community input. I know there's one we will be reading. For the report tonight, I believe Libby and Randy will be talking about the Alt Comp annual report. Under your discussion, you'll have superintendent goals. You'll talk about the committee process, a quick review of policies and a more detailed review of 2 policies, 203 and 209. Under action, you'll approve the 2020 to 2025 strategic plan, the arts and music curriculum. You'll approve the 10-year long-term facilities maintenance program budget and also approving policy 510 and transportation policy 713. Then there's time for the board to report anything in their work as liaisons or committee chairs. And then information, there's regular reports of enrollment, expenditures, and the language for the transportation webpage. Tonight, joining us from the administration is Brian Bass. That was weird. Why did that come on? Brian Bass. Karen. David White is here.
I think you might be coming in.
I don't know why it's doing that. Let me try it this way. Can everybody hear me? Okay. David White's here from Transportation, Libby Sandvik. John Tope, Mary Whitey, Communications, Randy Smazel. Sarah's here also, Val Burke, and our technician is Zach Horn. There are other members of the professional staff that are here, and I'll leave those introductions to the directors when it comes to that time in the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Superintendent Schultz. Before we move on with the rest of our agenda, Superintendent Schultz and our entire board would like to address our community regarding the death of George Floyd, the events that have taken place across the country since then, and what we feel this means for our school district. As the leadership of the Edina school community, we have a responsibility to speak candidly and clearly about the tragic murder of George Floyd, the subsequent turmoil that has devastated many communities, including our own neighbor, Minneapolis, and what this means for our school district. To our Black students and families, Black educators and staff, and Black community members, we want to acknowledge your pain. We want to acknowledge how weary you must be, and we want to remember that Black lives do matter each and every day. To our broader Edina community, we are a public education system. The very foundation of our country's public education system is centered on the belief that we can overcome gaps and create a more equal society for our country's children. It is not only our legal obligation, but our moral duty to educate every student that walks through the door of an Edina school to their fullest potential. And where this system has failed many of our children, we cannot use our past failures as an excuse for inaction. We also need to acknowledge that it should not take a tragedy such as this to elevate the sense of urgency to meet those needs. As a school board elected to represent the entire community, we recognize the best way to lead is to listen to and partner with our communities of color and let the voice of others show us the way. We believe meaningful change requires careful thought, consideration, and input from various groups, including our staff, students, parents, faculty, and community members of color. Let us be clear, though, This work is on all of our shoulders, led by voices of color, all of our shoulders. Our strategic plan that we are approving tonight lays out some foundational steps to start this work. As a board, we will be working over the summer to have conversations on the important issues of race and equity and how we can elevate voices of color to help guide us in the creation of tangible steps that affect the real systemic educational issues that are surrounding us. Additionally, Superintendent Schultz will be conducting a comprehensive review of all district policies for potential biases or unintended disparate outcomes. There will be periodic reviews through our policy committee and quarterly updates at board work sessions. We appreciate the support and understanding you will extend in recognizing the time we will take to thoughtfully, carefully, and inclusively create an action plan with measurable outcomes. As we stated earlier, this work is on all of us. And as a school community, we can either embrace each other in this effort and become a better school district for everyone, or we can let discomfort divide us. We challenge everyone to walk through our discomfort and emerge better than ever. It is through our combined efforts and support of one another that we may realize our mission in supporting the needs of our community, maintaining the excellence we expect from the Edina School District. Thank you. I'll now move on with the rest of our agenda. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the May 18th regular meeting and work session and the May 28th special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We will now vote by roll call to approve the May 18th and May 28th meeting minutes.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Walden Friedman.
Aye.
The meeting minutes are approved. And now we're going to move to our tonight's excellence in action portion, and it's featuring our Dear Edina Pen Pal program. It's an example of community partnership and building community despite our need to maintain social distancing guidelines. Here to tell us about it is Annie Schilling, Enrichment Supervisor in Community Education, and Nicole Gorman, Recreation Supervisor at the Edina Senior Center. So welcome Annie and Nicole. And I'm not going to tell you that my pen pal thinks I'm a grandma, so that's my only complaint about the program. But it's an outstanding program, so thank you for being here to talk about it.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really very excited about this partnership. The partnership has been between the Edina School District, Community Ed, the Edina Senior Center, and the Edina Library. We all came together, spearheaded by Nicole Gorman, who is with the Edina Senior Center. She had this brilliant idea, and we brought it to life. And it's been amazing. We've had over 300 participants. The hallmark of this program has been that it is intergenerational. There are some grandmas, although not everybody is a grandma. There are kids. There are people my age. My college age daughter is also participating, and I know there's a number of representatives from all across the community participating in this program. One of the things that it really did was it brought the community together in a time of physical distancing. And as we all know, community is more important than ever. And we were really proud of the fact that we could bring this community together. So Nicole at the Senior Center also probably wants to say a few words, and I'll let her take it from here.
I just believe that collaborating with other organizations creates a better program overall for the community that we serve. And it has been wonderful working with Annie and Community Ed as well as the Edina Library. They've really taken the idea and ran with it. And I think having over 300 participants is a testament to the work that we've done in our collaboration, and it's been great. I can't wait to do more things with community ed.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with the partnership as well. I've got just 3 slides to show you some of the letters. They've come with artwork. Let's see if I can get this up. No, I don't think I'm going to be able to. So I'll just say that the letters have come with artwork and so much creativity, and it's been a wonderful endeavor.
Great.
So thank you for the recognition and the opportunity to tell you all about it.
No, thank you. I know it's been, for personal experience, I've really enjoyed it, and it's a great program. So
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, so thank you very much. It's wonderful. So thank you. Well, great. Thank you both for coming and presenting tonight. I really appreciate it. And keep up the great work. And I love seeing the collaboration with the different Edina programs. So that's wonderful. So thank you. So we have some other excellence in action things to present to you guys. And I wanted to mention that we have received numerous emails thanking us for the commencement that we put on. And I wanted to thank Superintendent Schultz and Andy Beaton and Mike Pataski
Yep.
For putting together such an outstanding commencement for our seniors. And I just wanted to read one of the emails that we received thanking us for it. So it says, Mr. Schultz, I want to express my sincere gratitude for Edina High School's thoughtful graduation alternative this year. We didn't have a graduate in our house, but we had 3 on the block. What a fantastic community experience to celebrate and cheer for those seniors as they were given their diploma and threw their caps. Heartwarming to see the neighborhood street lined with families who otherwise might not have even realized there was a senior in the house. So many neighbors came out to their front yards to wave and hold handmade banners, and the EHS yard signs even allowed us to cheer for the graduates by name. The younger students enjoyed waving to a familiar bus driver and knowing their hard work this year was going to be worth it. Our older neighbors or empty nesters could participate from a safe distance, and the graduates had huge smiles. I heard no one disappointed that we couldn't have a graduation as usual. In fact, all those I spoke with said they far preferred this celebration to sitting in an auditorium. I recognize that this took a lot of time and was a huge commitment from the administration to pull off. Please know how grateful I am and extend my thanks to all of those involved. I was amazed at how many yard signs recognizing our seniors I saw when I go out walking over the past month. It was an important reminder just how many young students we have in our community and of how the important role our schools have for our city. I would strongly encourage consideration of this to be a new EHS tradition. Thank you again, Heather Peterman. So I just really thank everyone that was involved in this, and thank the community too for coming out and cheering on our graduates. It really was an amazing experience. So I just wanted to recognize everyone involved in that. And finally, we received a letter of appreciation from for one of our countryside custodians, Wes Martin, and I want to read that. It says, last Wednesday afternoon, while a family was at the countryside playground, someone broke a window on their car and stole items from the vehicle. Night lead custodian Wes Martin helped the family make contact with the police and also helped them with their vehicles so they could get home safely. The next day, Edina police officer Emily Jepson sent the following email to Principal Bergman. When I spoke with the victim yesterday, she was shaken as she had her children with her. When someone's space has been violated like hers was, they are vulnerable. Your custodial staff recognized this and stepped up to help. He vacuumed out the glass from the victim's vehicle, ensuring she and her children had a safe ride home. I wanted to thank him for that. It was a show of kindness and compassion to a person in need that I think all of us can appreciate. So thank you, Wes, for going above and beyond. I think we all really appreciate that. And so that ends our excellence in action portion for tonight, and we're going to move on to our consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We will now vote by roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman,
Aye.
The consent agenda has been approved. Now we're going to read community input we have received via email regarding agenda items for tonight's board meeting. And just a reminder to the community, we welcome input. We're asking that the community email the board, and we'll read those emails pertaining to board agenda topics at our board meeting. We did receive an email from a community member regarding our strategic plan, and I have asked John Tope to read this for us.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is a email from Sarah Ramada, community member. Good evening, school board members, Dr. Schultz, and district administrators. Where is the urgency in Edina Public Schools' effort to address basic literacy? Since I first approached the board regarding dyslexia and basic literacy in the spring of 2017, 4 classes totaling over 2,600 students have graduated from Edina High School. The MCA reading proficiency scores, more than 600 students have graduated without necessary reading proficiency. While these numbers are better than most districts in our state and nation, research shows that with appropriate instruction, 95% of students can read at grade level. Shouldn't Edina be aiming for appropriate instruction and 95% of students reading proficiently? In the process of creating a new strategic plan, the school board has included basic literacy and language arts. By 2024, Edina will, quote, review, develop, and implement an improved literacy program at EPS PK to 12, close quote. This goal of 2024 means another 600 students will graduate without being proficient in reading before the plan is even implemented. This goal means that over 2,600 students will enter kindergarten between now and 2024, while Edina Public Schools knowingly press forward with inappropriate reading and basic literacy curriculum. Where is the urgency? Our incoming kindergartners and elementary students deserve strong basic literacy skills. Our current middle school and high school students deserve to have their needs identified and their basic literacy deficits addressed. Edina Public Schools cannot wait 4 more years to recognize and address basic literacy. It must start now in every grade. What is the plan? Urgency. Thank you, Sarah Ramada, community member.
Thank you for reading that, John.
Yes.
And any community member that would like to send in items, please email us by noon the day of our board meeting, and we will read it at the board meeting during the evening. Yes, thank you. We're now going to move on to our alt comp report, and we have Assistant Superintendent Randy Smazel here, Libby Sandvik, Chris Dunn, and Windermere Coffey to present to us. So thank you all for attending tonight, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Smazel to present to us on this alt comp report.
Thank you, Chair Elmbert. I'm just doing a sound check. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Ellenberg, Superintendent Schultz, our school board members, and our community members. I am Randy Smazel, currently Director of Teaching, but soon Assistant Superintendent at Edina Public Schools. That's all good.
I gave your promotion too early.
And Libby Sandvik is joining us this evening, and she is the Teacher Evaluation Program Facilitator and Professional Learning Facilitator for Edina Public Schools. We'll also be joined this evening by Chris Dunn. He's one of our Teacher Evaluation peer coaches, and Windermere Coffey, who is at Edina High School, and she's a language arts teacher at our high school. What Libby is going to do is she's going to give us just a quick flyover of some of the things that are in the report. The board and maybe community members had an opportunity to read the report, but Libby will do a quick summary of that, and then she'll also turn it over to Chris Dunn. Chris will talk a little bit about his experiences as a peer coach and how he prepares for that, what he takes away from that experience. And then he will also then turn over to Windermere to talk about what it's like on the other end of that coaching experience and what it's like as a teacher going through that coaching experience and maybe some of the benefits gained from some of that. The AltComp report is is required by statute. Every year, the school district has to hear the report at a public board meeting by June 15th. And so we want to make sure that we meet that Minnesota statute requirement. And this report is coming from the Teaching and Learning Office. It is for information only. There's no action needed by the report, but we are simply meeting a statutory requirement. But at the same time, it is an opportunity for us to take advantage of the time with our community to talk about how we do some of the evaluation work with teachers inside of Edina Public Schools. So with that, I'll turn it over to Libby to give us a brief summary of what's in the report.
All right, thank you. I'm happy to be here this evening. This, as Randy said, this is a statutory requirement of QComp. In Edina, we are just finishing our 12th year of implementation of QComp. And we have some strengths of our program. One of them is just the fidelity of implementation across the district is very high, in part due to our peer coaching team. Peer coaches lead reflective conversations with our non-probationary staff. All of our peer coaches, including the 2 who joined this year, have all completed the 8-day cognitive coaching foundation seminar and use their coaching skills in every interaction and meeting that they have with teachers. We continue to see teachers stretching in their practice, asking coaches to come in to new lessons that they haven't taught before, not just their canned perfect lessons. And teachers are also continuing to write and work on rigorous student learning goals targeting the success of all students in our district. Every year we give a spring survey on the program. This year is no different. The survey was administered on or launched on the Staff Development Day on March 13th. And because of that timing, we probably had a slightly lower response rate than we have in past years, but we still had 213 people respond. And when they were asked the question, my participation in the program has helped me grow as a teacher this year, 95.7% agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. And when answering with regards to their participation in the program having a positive effect on student achievement, 93.8% agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. And those values are up a little bit from last year, but in about the same range. We consistently get response rates in the mid-90s for those questions. And we are always in our program looking for ways that we can continue to improve the program. One of the things I appreciate most about QComp is just that it has a dynamic nature and we're able to change based upon the different needs as they present themselves. This year, that was evidenced 2 ways. This spring required some changes to our program due to COVID. MDE came out with guidelines that terminated all observations effective March 18th. So the coaching team, along with Randy and Tom Connell, came up with a modified spring that supported teachers, but also ensured that we were meeting program requirements and making sure that teachers still had the ability to earn their full incentive and their performance increment, formerly known as a STEP, on the salary schedule for this spring. We also had a group work all year long on the MOU for the program. Every 2 years, that needs to be reauthorized, and we took data from the last 2 years' surveys along with input from the various stakeholder groups, and we reviewed the MOU to determine what changes needed to be made that would continue to provide growth opportunities for teachers and opportunity to enhance student achievement. 2 of the changes that came from that work are that principals now will be required to conduct 1 observation in year 3 for our non-probationary staff who are on a 3-year evaluation cycle. Previously, principals had been encouraged to conduct an observation. And then we also will be implementing a new observation framework for our non-probationary teachers. that will help to empower our professionals through purposeful observation and reflection opportunities that also gives them some choice and voice in the process. And I'm speaking just towards our non-probationary staff, because our probationary teachers, while they're still in QComp, are observed by principals, and statute really defines that observation process. We have 2 other new coaches that will be joining us in the fall, and as a team, we'll continue to refine our coaching skills through professional development as a team, through a metro network we belong with, and outside opportunities as they present themselves. All the returning coaches will continue to work with the same teachers next year, continuing to build relationships rooted in trust and building the rapport, and continuing to be able to push teachers a little deeper in their work. And then we'll continue with our inter-rater reliability training between coaches and principals, furthering that program. So now, Chris, I'll turn it over to you to share a story about your coaching experiences.
Thank you. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that Libby talked about as far as teacher growth and student achievement. So this program is unique in the sense that it blends evaluation with coaching, right? So like when I go into a classroom and do an observation, I'm doing 2 things. I'm looking for, certain descriptors and areas of proficiency that we want to see from all our teachers. But then at the same time, I'm also looking to collect data so that I can sit and work with the teacher and figure out how we can improve. And, early on in this program, or early on in working with teachers, I'm in my 3rd year now. There's a tendency when someone comes into your room as a teacher to put your best stuff forward, right? I think anybody would agree with that. If you're getting evaluated, you want to make sure you make a good impression. So initially, a lot of times teachers might schedule an observation in a class that is a little bit more predictable as far as they know what the behavior is going to look like in the class. They're choosing a lesson that they know is going to be engaging for the kids. And that's great. But then I always invite the teachers to say, okay, well, when you're trying something new that you want to get feedback on, or you're having difficulty with a certain group, right? Groups being challenging, kids aren't talking enough, kids are talking too much. That would be a good opportunity as well to invite me in so that I can come in and collect some data, and we can work side by side to kind of troubleshoot some of the problems. And I'm always impressed with the number of teachers that take me up on this offer, and I'm able to come in and collect data, and then we look at it side by side after the observation, and we find out all kinds of solutions or things that the teachers can try to either get kids talking more, get kids moving, get kids more engaged and focused on the material. So from a teacher growth standpoint, that's one thing I think the program does really well. I also want to talk about the student achievement piece. And Libby mentioned this a little bit with the SLGs, which stands for Student Learning Goal. Each year at the beginning of the year, coaches sit down with all of their teachers and develop a goal that they want to focus on for their students, which could be either related to the teacher's specific content, or it could be a building-wide goal, whether it's math or reading or writing. And we decide, we come up with a quantitative goal that we can measure where we want students to be able to be at the end of the year. And with that in mind, we come up with the game plan essentially of, okay, what are the strategies that we're going to use to make sure that kids get to that goal? And then what are the interventions we're going to put in place? So if sometime along, the process, kids aren't making the progress that we hope for, we want to make sure we have a plan of action so we're catching kids, right? And if kids are exceeding the mark, what are we doing to provide enrichment for them? Along with that, we want to have checkpoints along the year. We're not just going to come up with this goal in September and then cross our fingers and in June hope that everything went well. So we have things along the way to make sure we're checking for progress, collecting data from the kids so that we can see, hey, kids are hitting the mark here or they're not, and then we need to tap into some of those interventions or some of those different things that we can do to make sure we're getting kids where we want them to be. And then finally, at the end of the year, we look at the data. So whatever we decided we were going to collect data on, we look and see how we did, and we talk about what things went really well, what helped students be successful in the goal. If some students didn't make the goal, where are areas for improvement and what can we do better? So Like I said, two big things with student achievement and teacher growth. Proud to be a part of the program. Proud to work with great teachers like Wendy, who I'll turn it over to and let her share some of her thoughts.
All right. Thank you for having me. And so on the other side of this evaluation...
Wendy, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Does that sound better?
That's better. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. On the other side of evaluations, I kind of want to echo what both Libby and Chris talked about. Is what I love about this program and what's most useful to me is the ability to be vulnerable as a teacher. Because it is peer coaching evaluations, it's not a gotcha type thing. I'm not worried about a coach coming in and trying to find everything I'm doing wrong. I think about it as we are working here as a team to be better. And so quite often I feel very comfortable in teaching a lesson I've never taught before, in making my SLG goal something that is truly meaningful, and working on something that I know is a weakness that I have. So for example, this year, my goal was to work with my English language learner students, because I feel as an English teacher, I can be better at that. I can reach them in a way that I'm not reaching them yet. And so I felt comfortable making that goal, and I felt comfortable talking to Chris about, I'm not there yet. You know, how do we work together to get me there? What can I do to better myself as a teacher to reach these students? And between us, we came up with a plan and carried it out as much as COVID allowed us to carry it out. And I felt like I grew as a teacher. And that is, to me, the best part of this program, is the trust that I'm allowed to build with my peer coach. This was my first year with Chris. Before that, I was with Jem Hawthorne for 4 or 5 years. I can't remember how many. But over that time, because it was so long, I felt comfortable going to Jem with anything that I was struggling with and getting really great feedback and becoming a much stronger teacher because of it. So I think also being able to stay with the same peer coach for a length of time is very, very beneficial as teachers, because we need to build that trust, and we need to get to know our coaches and feel like we can work together. And so I guess that's kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. At this time, we'd like to turn it over to our school board and see if you have any questions for this team.
Superintendent? I think you cut out, Randy, but I'm taking you're turning it over to the school board for questions.
Yes, sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
Just turning it over to our board for any questions you have for our team.
This is Owen. I may have missed it, but what does MOU mean? Libby, I think I saw that on one of your slides.
It stands for Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
No questions, anyone?
I don't have any questions. I think it's a pretty amazing program.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any questions. I just think it's an amazing support program. So I appreciate hearing that and being able to kind of really visualize what that looks like in the classroom and the support for the teachers. So thank you guys for coming and sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll echo what Julie said. I find opportunities like this, when we model this type of behavior for our students, to be really powerful in showing them that asking for help and being vulnerable and trying new things pays off, and that we applaud it. So thank you so much.
I think my only question is there anything, if you could change or enhance anything about the program, what would it be? Specifically, any, I guess, you could ask for from the board, anything that we could do to help enhance the program?
Well, for me personally, I think we really need to, and we were discussing this earlier today in another meeting I was in, we need to have more emphasis on racial equity work within our peer coaching. So that is one of the descriptors we're looking for in the classroom is, are we meeting the needs of all our students, but specifically our Black and Brown students? And that is something that, I continue to encourage the board to keep racial equity at the forefront of what we do in everything, not just because of what's happened recently, but because that's what should be done in a school, in a world, in a community. So that's what I would ask for personally.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments about how we could help enhance or support the program and the training and feedback from a board perspective?
I think we feel as a program well supported. We are a fully funded program, so we get funding from the state. 2/3 comes from the state, 1/3 is levied, and that pays for all of our programming costs. So that includes the incentives and the salaries for the 8 of us in the program. And there's a lot of statute that is guiding. If anything, I'd like the legislature to loosen some of that statute language up, because I've got some great big ideas, but they don't fit into the constraints that, are just there. But I think, I would say if any board member is interested in learning more about the program and tagging along with one of our coaches, that we'd welcome that opportunity to let you into our world and see what is going on, behind the scenes. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Libby.
Thank you, Libby.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for presenting this. All right. So if there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on to our discussion items. And we have one item up for discussion and then our policies. Superintendent goals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Matt. I'll turn it over to John to review his superintendent goals for us.
Okay, so I know the board has had a discussion around my goals at a work session, and I want to thank you for the input into these goals. I know the HR committees also had input into this, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over this. The big buckets that are here are distance learning, and really figuring out what are our protocols going to look like for next year as we begin the 2021 school year. And what does that delivery look like? Does it look different than what we've done since March? I think we are right now in the process of figuring out how do we improve our delivery, how do we ensure student growth and engagement, how do we ensure that we got quality and sound parent communication going forward. And then at the other end, if the state does allow us to use buildings for larger numbers of students, what are the protocols that go into that? How do we use our buildings? How do we clean our buildings? Those of considerations are part of this goal. The school district has a capital projects levy or a technology levy that expires next fall. So not this coming fall, but the following fall, the fall of 2021. So we need to begin to think about renewing that levy and figuring out a conversation we can have with our community in providing us levy for our technology and other things related to learning in the school system. And then the strategic plan that you'll approve later on. I've had discussions with the board over the last couple months on those areas that we want to launch, which includes looking at magnet programming, also continue to build upon our current intervention system that we've started to work on, begin a study for the sole purpose of developing a literacy plan, which is clear in the strategic plan, beginning the social emotional learning support by surveying staff and students to find out what is needed for them. And then work, which I know the board's working on right now, the key performance indicators. And then communications will begin launching a new district website. So all of those are related to strategic plan, and I put that forward as work to be considered for 2021 for the superintendent.
Thank you, John. So I just wanted to let the board know, and considering these goals, I know the last time we discussed them, there was concern about having too many goals, especially with the distance learning situation. And I think that I feel that equity piece is missing from this. I feel like we have a lot of moving parts as a school district right now. And my personal suggestion is that I had marked July 13th. We have a work session on July 13th that we were going to talk about our own board goals. And what I think we should do is expand that meeting to talk about board goals, to really take a look at everything that we are signing up for as a district from, and I've started a list, everything that we've said we're going to try to accomplish from a strategic planning perspective, things that we have to do every year from like the budget for class, have the science curriculum rollout. And basically, I think we need to prioritize what we're going to do as a district, what our board goals are, and bring John's goals into that conversation. So we're not having this done in isolation, and make sure all of those things are aligned. And so I just wanted to throw out to you guys that, not that we necessarily put this on hold, but we put too much discussion on hold so we can bring it into a broader conversation about board goals, prioritizing everything we need to do as a district, and making sure that what we're asking him to do aligns with that, because I think we really have a lot of moving parts right now. But I just wanted to say that and throw that out to you guys and get your feedback.
Erica, I have a clarification question when you said that. So were you also thinking that the discussion in July would include equity work that we outlined in the letter to the community, that would be part of that discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because now we've layered that. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
That is a time commitment, and we're asking him to do, taking note of all this stuff. And I think we need to take a look at all of that as a board and prioritize those things, because I personally would rather have us do manageable things really well than try to do a list of 25 things not well. And I think we're getting to the point where we are attempting to do too much, and it's going to be too much for John, it's going to be too much for the board, it's going to be too much for administrators. And I think we need to really prioritize and think about what we can realistically get accomplished.
Yeah, I'm 100% behind what you were saying. That was what I've been thinking too, in looking at kind of where we are in this moment. I think looking at the strategic plan, which I think is so solid and such a good foundation to start, that it's okay to just pause for a moment so that we are really strategic about how that implementation phase starts. Yep. So I'm all in agreement with that, pushing that to July for discussion.
And so, Erica, you would anticipate then that the superintendent goals may change based upon that July 13th discussion. Is that a fair statement?
I would think not a ton, but I wouldn't think a ton. I would think it could be pared down and shifted some. I just don't want us to have a really long conversation about this document and then be like, hey, surprise, let's reprioritize. I don't want to basically waste our time tonight if we're going to have another conversation, because I think it would be a better use of our time to hold on this and have a broader, more strategic discussion about every single thing that we are tasking ourselves with, and make sure that this really does align with it. Because I think what we're tasking John to do with right now is really off of the strategic plan, which makes sense. I think that when we look at the strategic plan, layer on top of that a lot of things that we have to think about. Like I said, the science curriculum rollout, our budget, we've thrown in like things like profile of a learner. We've talked about class sizes. I have a laundry list of about 25 to 30 things that we've talked about doing. On top of that, the equity work, on top of that, distance learning itself could take 90% of his time. So I just want to make sure that we just take a moment to pause and really methodically all of this is, and that we weigh in as a board and say, all of us, this is what we agree on. This is the approach we're going to take. This is what we want John to do for the year. And that our goals, his goals, it all aligns, knowing that, of course, the way the world is working, it could change in 6 days. But I think it's worth the time and effort just to take a pause and make sure we have that conversation. I think it would set us up much better next year.
Yeah, this is Matt. I totally agree with doing it that way. If we look at 2018, 2019, now 2020, setting board goals and superintendent goals, they started out with 8 to 12 of each, and it was just untenable. There was no way they were going to get achieved. And it doesn't make any sense to set goals you're not going to actually achieve. So my preference would even be in that July meeting to perhaps look at what has to happen, what we'd like to happen, what would be stretch goals. For instance, right now, John doesn't need any direction from us or the administration. He's got a new teaching and learning person. He has a new assistant superintendent who obviously has been part of the lead team, but he's shifting people. He's orientating his new staff. He's dealing with major budget changes that involve significant state feedback in the next 3 weeks, which is why we're having the additional budgeting meeting end of this month. The distance learning componentry of the planning that has to take place regardless of whether all kids are back in the classroom or not in 10 to 11 weeks. So it really ends up being something where waiting 30 days and getting it all right with more information is a way better approach, let alone use of time. So, I appreciate the respect for everyone's time, but also it really is a better process. So that way we can set goals we can achieve or know what our stretch goals are. And I think we've trended in a better direction each year. I'd like to see us get it right this year, which would be great.
So I'm just going to note that I agree with what you're suggesting, Erica. And when I look at the superintendent goals, I'm just going to note that I would actually have a shorter list, but we can get into that in a little more depth on the 13th.
Ellen?
Yeah, I completely agree that we need to align both our goals with the capacity of the superintendent and make sure that our priorities are all well thought out and intentional. And I really appreciate you recommending that we take a step back and rethink how this is going to be, because I've actually always also, some of you have also said, I've also thought that we've had too many goals. And so I think it's really wise to prioritize and do a few things really well. And so I would go along with your proposal. I am curious how this fits into the Gantt chart and how you see our reevaluating what we're doing maybe next year even. Affecting this other document that we are to approve today.
For the strategic plan.
For the strategic plan? Yeah. Are you asking about the strategic plan or how?
Yeah.
So I think
what I'm asking about is we may realize that our priorities that we have indicated on that Gantt chart that we would start this year may need to be rethought. And
so that can be reviewed. That can be reviewed at the 13th meeting, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, Ellen. And I don't. I think it might make sense actually to pull the Gantt chart. I think we should approve the strategic plan. I think it might make sense to pull the Gantt chart because I think that Gantt chart made sense for that point in time, and I think things have things are changing so much, just literally week to week. I think that when we get to that, I think we should make a motion to actually remove that from the agenda for tonight, because I don't think that point in time is accurate even as of right now.
Yeah, I think so too.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So are you guys comfortable? And we're not actually necessarily changing or doing anything different for tonight. I like I said, I think the goals laid out here are fine. Like I said, even for this point in time, I just think that I think this warrants a broader discussion and a more strategic discussion about the district as a whole. And I know Janie and I think Owen, you wanted to say something, so I wanted to make sure you guys get to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that. Owen. I just wanted to add that I'm completely in agreement with this, with kind of pushing the process a little bit. So thank you.
I was just pretty much going to say the same thing. I'm on board with your initiative, Erica.
Okay.
It's a good idea.
Okay. So why don't we plan on the 13th? What I was planning on bringing to the 13th for asking you guys ahead of time. I have a running list of board goals, which included some of the stuff from last meeting we had talked about. But I have a running list of board goals. I was going to ask you guys ahead of time any ideas you had for board goals, but no one has to remember that tonight because you'll get an email about it. John's goals that we have now, and then I'm creating a list of, like I said, I'm just compiling a comprehensive list, but then I like Matt's idea. John and I can do some work about things that like have to get done, sort of must have, and we could sort of look at things that way. And then we'll walk through that on the 13th and try to come out of the July 13th with a really crisp list of priorities for us. Because I would like to have, what I would ultimately like to have is a 12-month strategy that says, this is what we're going to work on, and this is when we approve and look at things for the entire year, is what I'm trying to get us to. So,
I like that framing because it's three things. So if we can do that, I'd be very happy.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So Owen, you're up next with policy.
Oh, that's right.
I can kill more time if you need some more time.
Okay. We have two kinds of policies to look at right now in our discussion. The first is rapid review, and we have two of those. And then we have two that we may want to have more substantive discussion. We're breaking it down apart like this, you may remember, because we have policies that we need to look at annually, and we have policies we need to look at every third year. This group that falls into the every third year category, we evaluate whether they have been adjusted. Any recommended adjustments have been made in MSBA model leadership. And if we have found none, then we just put it into a rapid review so we can expedite our board work. So first off, I would just ask if anyone, this is the first time we've done it with this label. So that's why I spent a little time discussing that. Does anybody have any comments they would like to make about our rapid review policies of 505 and 806? Okay, then we can move on from there. And then we get into our more substantive discussion of policies 203 and policy 209. These both are school board operations. The first is the operation of the school board. And Eric, I think you drove a lot of this. Would you like to lead our discussion on this?
Sure. So policy 203 is operation of the school board. And this one, we don't have the board norms at this meeting because we're waiting until we add the committee descriptions to the committee policy, and then we'll bring the board norms next month. But we wanted to make sure that anything related to the board function was in alignment with anything in the board norms. And so most of the language is in reference to the board norms, but the main any changes are highlighted in red. And then you can see the agenda changed, and that's mostly to make sure it's in alignment with what we've already actually been doing. Because before we actually, like, for example, on our agenda had no hearing from members of the public for some reason. And so that's been updated. I think we have, like, in D, we have that no meeting will continue beyond 10 p.m. unless, as a board, we agree to it. And then we put some parameters in there just to make sure we're all aligning to the same sort of processes, to make sure we're really functioning as an efficient board. And so if we want to request an agenda item, we all have the same rights and responsibilities, and it clearly lays out that what the process is. And so I think those are the three main things that were put into this policy, which was the agenda, when to request, putting something on the agenda, and then the 10 p.m. meeting time. So those three things.
Any comments, thoughts?
So I have a question about was it Roman numeral 5? Maybe it's F or G, where it talks about something can be added to an agenda by a motion adopted at the meeting. So if we have a special meeting, I don't think that we can add things to the agenda. So I just wonder whether you want to add language that pertains to regular meetings as opposed to all meetings. Because, for example, I believe what happens is if we schedule meetings for the whole year, work session, regular meetings, we can revise those agendas at the meeting. But whenever we add a work session, you can't revise it. So just that little clarification would be great.
Yep. That makes sense.
Okay, Erica, so you captured that.
Yep.
And you'll send that on to Sarah.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, if there's no more discussion on 203, we can move to 209. And this is School Board Code of Ethics. And again, Erica, you are the initiator of this. Would you like to make some comments about it?
Sure. So 209, again, this was trying to be in alignment with the board norms, and the change on page 1 is to make my decisions based on available information and supersedes any other loyalties. That is the same language that is written in the board norms. And then I believe the other change has to do with school board member discipline, which we didn't have that available anywhere. And so there's a part written in the actual policy, and then most of it is written in the appendix. But the point behind this is basically to try to resolve things at the lowest possible level before elevating something to the board. And so it states that, we have responsibilities as board members to follow the code of ethics and we have our responsibilities, but if something does happen, here is how we can resolve it. And then it spells out, here are the different ways that it can be resolved. And that is what Appendix 2 is. It's a process. So it lays out specifically different options that board chair or board members can take before elevating things to make all effort possible to resolve things at the lowest possible level. So that's what the changes to 209 entail.
Well, I can jump in. At the committee meeting, I had some reservations about the amended language of 2A7 that Erica just spoke to. Make my decisions based on the available information and in the best interest of all students. This obligation supersedes any conflicting loyalty I may have to advocacy or interest groups based upon memberships or other boards, conflicts upon my personal interests or other members of my family. And to me, that struck me as being inhibiting the free and unencumbered expression of opinions of members of the board. And I think we've talked about this before in work sessions, so I don't need to belabor it too much because I think my thoughts on it. My example that I used in the committee was if you, for instance, ran for the school board because you had a very strong belief in Planned Parenthood and wanted to do things in the school district that in accord with Planned Parenthood. We could switch that and also Citizens Concerned for Life, that you are a member of either one of those groups. They're on opposite ends of the political spectrum on that particular issue. But if that is what animated you and motivated you to run for school board, I think that is your prerogative as a citizen of Edina and Minnesota to advocate for either one of those positions. And if you happen to get elected, the citizens of our district deemed you worthy to express those opinions. And I may disagree with somebody having a monotone perspective on what they're bringing into the board, but if the community elected them, then I think their opinions as aligned with their organization, I think, expressed their desire and the community's desires. So that's why I'm not excited about that. And I don't know if it would hold up in court if it were challenged. That's a practical consideration I have also. So those are my reservations, and you've heard them before.
So let me just address that. So what this section says is you're going to base your decision on the interest of all students. So if you run on a campaign of, whatever, pro Planned Parenthood, first of all, I don't think that people should run for school board based on individual issues, but let's just say one did. You would, as a school board member, have the absolute right to advocate to the board to consider that. But when you make your decision, you have to make your decision based upon what's in the best interest of all the students, not what's in the best interest of a specific advocacy group. And that's all this says. It doesn't stop you from advocating, but your decision must be for the students as a whole. That's the way I read it.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
I wrote this for a recommendation if you want to read that.
So I have couple of minor things on other areas. So if you go to Roman numeral 3, there's all those bullet points at the end. You see where I'm at, Owen?
In Roman numeral 3,
right at the end.
School board member discipline?
Yes. So if you look at the last bullet, it says censure from the board and removal of the board member. I think those should be two separate bullets. In other words, you've listed a series of potential outcomes. Censure is one outcome, removal of the board is another. So I would just create a separate bullet for the removal. At least that's how I read it.
That makes sense.
Okay, and then
Reasonable.
going down to Appendix 2. So if I look at sub C is discussion between the member in question and the full board. And what this talks about at the end, after having an opportunity to respond, and will be removed only after. I think that should be, will be disciplined only after.
Oh,
C is discipline, D is removal. So then, and then the other thing that I would look at is, when you go back to committee, look as to whether the language in D should parallel the language in C. So just in other words, what the steps are if for parallel construction. And I think I have member may request that the chair schedule a full board discussion. Just look at those two for parallel language, that's all. And those are my only comments on that policy.
Okay, we'll bring that back. And I don't know if there's really any discussion. We'll just put those in.
Okay, I have one comment, and it has to do with item E in the appendix.
did you say B or D?
E.
Oh, sorry. E.
Sorry. E. And sorry. So, and what I am, I'd like to clarify is this is the first, the appendix is written for policies, disciplines for actions against policy. This one is the first place where it's mentioned board norms.
Yeah, that should be removed. I think that should be removed.
Yep, I think so too.
I agree.
So are you saying that norms, that a violation of a norm doesn't have an enforcement mechanism?
I'm saying this isn't the place for it. So this is for specifically
right
in the
now,
policy.
Right. So then, if we think that norms should be enforced, then we'll need to make sure that the norms have an enforcement section.
Or if it's important enough that it would need to be enforced, then maybe it should be in policy.
I think I'd go along with that. That's my trouble with norms, because it's a second governing set of documents, and it's outside of the scope of the schedule of review. I think being in policy, it's afforded that. We get the fresh eyes of new board members on it. And if it's to be enforced, it ought to be a part of policy. Policy is spoken of in statute. Norms aren't. So if we mean it, I think we ought to put it into policy.
Yeah, I'm not sure that every norm has to be in policy, but I think if we agree to norms, then we should have and I have to go back and look at norms and see which ones don't align perfectly. But I would reserve the right to say that there needs to be an enforcement mechanism for norms. Again, I'll go back and look at it.
So what I'm referring to is the lack of consistency in the wording.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it's not only in the heading of the appendix, but it's also in the last. I'm just not getting used to this new board book. I'm flipping through, waiting for it to. So it's taken me a little while to find this, but the last section of that policy also speaks to policy violations and not norms. So Lenny, if I understand that there might be a place for some disciplinary language for norms, but in my own personal feeling is that I think that if the norm, if a violation of a norm is going to warrant discipline, then it really should be in policy.
So I don't have any issue with the change you're suggesting. That just highlights what, in my mind, whether we need to go back and look at the norms and say, are there any of those that are enforcement? And I actually don't have an issue with having norms separate from policy. But I'm fine with your edit to this particular document.
Okay, so that's what I'm proposing, is to take out board norms from that.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I have that written down.
Okay, good. Thank you, Erica.
And by the way, Ellen, you can download the entire board book, and then what I did is I downloaded the entire board book and I have it open as a separate document running next to the.
Okay.
I mean, that's the only way I can look at it, because you're right, downloading it during the meeting is a mess.
Yeah. Thanks.
I discovered that, Lenny, because you tipped us off to that in the last meeting. Thank you. It was great. Janie, Julie, Matt, any comments you want to make about 209? You're fine?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I think we can move on. Erica, you've captured the edits, and then we'll bring that up for action next week, or next month, rather.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Owen. We're now going to move to the action portion of our meeting, and we have 3 items up for action. First is the final vote on our strategic plan. And I would like to make the motion that the school board approve the 2020-2025 strategic plan, and that it directs the administration to bring back a Gantt chart that better reflects the board's priorities as it makes decisions in the current context. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
Yeah. And I'll make that motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I will. Oh, go ahead, Julie. Do it.
Second.
Great. So I would like to open it up to board members to comment, or if they have questions, whatever.
This has been years of work. Started with of effort in 2018. We've had a small committee that sat throughout 2018 on a almost every other week basis, bringing stuff back to the board, brought in administrators, community, everybody else. So I'm excited to get on with the work. Thanks to everybody for all the input across the board.
I would like to just add to that, to Matt's gratitude, to thank the community for the input of community meetings, the staff for their expertise, leadership, for facilitating the development of action steps. Administrators really did a great job with that in developing the implementation plan. I don't also want us to forget our 2 facilitators, Fred Seaman from MGT and Miri Hansen from Millennial Consulting. Both had roles in the development of this plan. And then I really want to thank the board for your persistence in listening to the community and to all of us, and setting a direction that is best for Edina students. And last but not least, I want to thank the students of Edina Public Schools for their inspiration and energy of this important work, because this will influence their future.
Great. Thank you, John. I see you're off mute. Did you want to say something? No?
Who's that?
Talking to me?
Oh, Ellen. I thought Ellen wanted. Okay, there.
Ellen.
Okay, sorry.
I just want to think that this has been it's been more than an 18-month process, and there's been a lot of give and take. And I do want to call out the prominence that we have placed on literacy, and we've put a high priority on it. We made it very conspicuous. We are going to be allocating budget to it. We're going to be allocating professional development to it, new curriculum initiatives. I'm very excited about the general direction we're taking and the high level of priority that we're placing on it. And as many have heard me talk about, if we can do one thing for the district to help all of our students, it's to raise that third grade literacy rate. And I think it's very exciting that we are taking the bull by the horns and going straight into this. So I'm excited to see how this plays out.
Thank you, Owen. Janie?
No, I think I just want to thank, there's been so much work that was done before joining the board in January. So I have a ton of respect for all the hours that went in before becoming a board member. So it's just exciting to be part of it in this phase. So yeah, I'm ready to approve. Looks great.
Great. Thank you. Janie?
I'm just going to echo what Julie said.
Great. Thank you. Well, I just wanted to thank the board members and John and our administrators and staff and the community. And I'm really proud of the document we've created. And like Owen said, it's been a lot of compromise and give and take, but that's why you have a board, so you can listen to different voices and come together on a document. And I think that all of our different perspectives have made the document a better document for everyone. And now the hard work comes, which is actually implementing and measuring and monitoring. And so I hope and assume the community will hold us accountable for it. So I'm looking forward to having some discussions about how the strategic plan. So thank you to the rest of the board. I've enjoyed working on it with you. So without further ado, we will now vote by roll call to approve the strategic plan without the Gantt chart.
Ellenberg,
Aye.
Fox, Fox,
I misclicked the microphone thing 3 times. Aye. Sorry.
thanks. Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
The strategic plan is approved. Yay! Thank you. Moving on, do I have a motion to approve the arts and music curriculum?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And we have Teaching and Learning Director Smazel here to talk about the arts and music curriculum.
So as you know, we presented this at a previous board meeting, and part of what we were trying to do as a department is just to bring awareness to the board and community that through changes in statute that we will have new art standards that we will be implementing in 21-22 school year. In addition to that, we did also start a review of music across the district that was led by Caroline Linden. And what you saw in the report was a request for some new materials, both musical equipment and software and sheet music as a result of that music study. What that music study does is it really identifies some of those items that help support the music program from a continuous improvement standpoint, and allows them to meet their standards that are listed in the art standards. But I think it still does allow us the flexibility around any changes that will be implemented via the new art standards in other areas as well. There was a question last time, I think, about the World of Music and the amount of expense to World of Music and whether or not that would be impacted by the new art standards. In terms of the options that kids have in middle school, and that is yet to be determined. But really, the requests in this proposal are pretty minimal, I believe, in the World of Music area. And I think Caroline clarified that in maybe in the Teaching and Learning Board Committee meeting. Caroline, anything else you want to add?
Nope, just happy to be here supporting the arts, and I hope you have had enough time to take into consideration what you need, and looking forward to the vote.
Great. Do board members have questions about this proposal? No? Okay. So we'll now vote by roll call to approve the arts and music curriculum.
Ellenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
The arts and music curriculum is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
for
very
coming.
much. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Do I have a motion to approve the 10-year long-term facility maintenance program budget?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. John Tope is here for any questions regarding the 10-year facility maintenance program budget.
I could just quickly address that if board members want to know. This is the start of the. What are you laughing at?
We only see your head. So if we can you move? Move your camera. Okay, I got it. All right.
Underneath.
You're fine. All right, that's fine, John. You look great.
I gave you a heads up.
Yep, I know. So yeah, this, if the board recalls, last month we approved ISD 287 share of long-term facilities maintenance that we have to levy for. Now we've come up with Wold Architects and Eric Hamilton, our director of buildings and grounds, our full 10-year plan. And now we want the board to approve that because come July, we have to approve our complete package for long-term facilities maintenance, which will be revenue worksheet, expenditure worksheet, a statement of assurances, and a couple of other items as well. So this is a start of approving the long-term facilities maintenance documents, and we need approval from the board to start with of the 10-year plan. So I think in your documents, you got by year, by building, and in terms of dollars. And then you also got a graph that showed that as well. And then you did get a listing of all those projects that comprise our 10-year plan sorted by building. There was some questions in finance committee meeting on that, but not many. And as we get further out in years 4, 5 through 10, all of that's subject to change. And again, it's a rolling 10-year plan. So I would ask for board approval tonight so that we can start the process of getting all the documents ready for the July meeting for the board to approve.
Thank you, John. Does anyone on the finance committee have any comments before I open it up to the rest of the board? Do any board members have questions or comments? No? Okay. We'll now vote by roll call to approve the 10-year long-term facility maintenance program budget.
Ellenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
The long-term facility maintenance program budget is approved. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve policies 510 and 713?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Owen, I'll send it back to you.
All right. We have two items, as Eric has just mentioned, 510 and 713. 510, as you have seen in your packet, is essentially just striking the language regarding the magnet schools. We no longer have a relationship with the fair schools, and so it is dated language. And if anyone has comments about that, we can talk about that. Otherwise, I'll move on to the more substantive item for action, and that is pay to ride. And we talked about it at length last board meeting, and we have John Tope here and David White to address any questions that we have. We did make some amendments to the language, and we want to pass this today so we can give the administration plenty of time to start implementing it by the fall, start collecting commitments from parents. So with that, I will ask for any questions, or else turn it over to John and David for some perspective.
As I was looking through the document, I'm not sure that the suggested wording that Director Wallen-Friedman had suggested before is. There was a suggestion, and I'll read it to you, that said, pay-to-ride notices will be sent out by the second week of June for the coming school year with a deadline to apply of July 15th. So that's on policy 713, page 10. And I'm not sure if that got in there or not, but if it didn't, I would suggest that the board approve it that way. That was the edit that Director Wallen-Friedman suggests. I think it's a good one for sure for this, at least this coming year, to do. I'll stop for questions.
Go ahead.
No, it actually says will be sent out the first week of June for the coming school year.
Right. So we had a suggested change by Director Wallen-Friedman.
Oh.
We had, because of the timing of this, that we send it out by the second week in June to give Director White some time to get this sent out. So
You sent that suggestion before we met tonight. That's what you meant.
Yeah. It just didn't get included for whatever reasons. And I think we want that kind of language in there, that word, because I think we all agreed on that at the previous meeting, that was a good suggested change.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't following correctly. Yeah, okay. I totally agree.
Okay, so we didn't get that language in. And go ahead, Lenny.
Right, so it'll just show up as a friendly amendment. That's all, as John suggested.
Okay.
So when we print this, the language will be in there. And for the purposes of tonight, procedurally, it's a friendly amendment that I made the motion, actually. Of course, I accept the friendly amendment.
Okay, and I think we've also updated have in the works updating the transportation webpage and had put some more questions and answers in there. And I think I'll let Director David White of Transportation respond to that, because I know he's been working with Mary Whitey on that.
Yeah, I think at this point we have everything is ready to go. So we'll have one letter that goes out to the Edina families and a separate letter that'll go out to the Parkwood Knolls families, just kind of updating them with the new fee, the updated fee. So that's all ready to go. There'll be a Google form online that they fill out. And then they'll be able to pay online, which is ready to go also.
Great.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, David, and thank you, John. And I just want to make sure that for people watching, the public understands that what this policy change means is that if you are in a non-transportation zone, that the district is now offering the option to pay to ride a bus. And it's on a first come, first served basis. And a communication will be going out within the first 2 weeks of June. But I just want to make sure that the public understands what we're talking about with this policy change.
And that it's applicable to their neighborhood school or choice school enrollment.
Correct.
I don't have any comments though, other than I just wanted to.
Okay, so no one else has any other comments. I think we can vote on these.
Great. Okay, we will now vote by roll call to approve policy 510 and 713.
And 713 with the friendly amendment.
Yes, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Allenberg?
Aye.
Fox?
Aye.
Green?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Michelson?
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen Friedman,
Aye.
Policies 510 and 713 are approved. So thank you. That concludes our action portion of the evening. We're now going to move on to any board liaison or committee chair reports. I don't know if anyone has anything that they would like to update the public on. Any board members?
So I have one more of an update to the school board. In terms of, but for the public, in terms of teaching and learning committee, the committee met last time at the end of May, and the discussion related to the alt comp. The comment I have to the school board is, at one of our last meetings, I said I would take a look at policy 213 in terms of whether the descriptions of the committees should be done by resolution or whether it should be included in the policy. I talked to MSBA. They have a model plan that includes it by resolution, but their point is as follows, which is they have it by resolution just for flexibility. So if we adopt the committee's descriptions and mission by resolution, we could change it at any meeting. If we include it in policy, then it would take us typically several months to make a change because it would have to go to policy committee, then it would have to theoretically get public input, and then it would go for 2 readings. So it's a flexibility only. There's no substantive difference from MSBA's perspective, whether it's by resolution or by within the text of the policy. So I give that information to the board. I do believe this is going to the policy committee, so that way they can have that information when they meet and then make a recommendation to the board the next time they come back.
Great. Thank you, Lenny.
You're welcome.
Great. So you'll have some language that we can look at, Lenny?
So the language we currently have mirrors the MSBA recommended language.
I mean, about the difference between the resolution and the policy. I thought that was very helpful, that distinction.
So again, the MSBA policy includes the language that we currently have. They're saying if you want to incorporate it into the policy itself, then you could do so. You just have less flexibility going forward.
Okay. We'll talk about that at our next meeting. Thank you.
Julie? I just checked to see if people are off mute. That's the only way I can tell if anyone wants to talk. So,
No.
yeah. The only thing I wanted to mention is our next work session is on the 22nd of June, and we're going to do the superintendent evaluation. So look for an email from John, which will have the documents you need for the superintendent evaluation. And we'll also be talking about committee assignments. So look for information about those 2 topics coming up on June 22nd. And then our work session after that will be that planning work session that I talked about earlier. So around the beginning of July, look for some more information about that planning work session. So those are our 2 next work sessions. So it will be committee assignments, superintendent evaluation. And then the one after that will be prioritization and goal setting process for us as a board /district/superintendent. And that's what we have between now and our July work session and board meeting. So that's all I have. Anyone else?
And so just for the public, I think that the superintendent evaluation is closed session.
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
So if you're a member of the public and you want to watch the work session, you'll just be able to see the portion on committee discussion.
Yes, and then we will at the July board meeting give a summary to the public. At the July regular board